ich dir noch angesäche, so bist du ihr aller Ehre. Was ist Wundes hier geschehen? Dass ein Magd ein Kind gebar, ihre über aller Engel schar. Was das nicht ein Wunder gab.
This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic, and unfortunately, we are not joined by Matt today. He has just returned from the East Coast. He is back in sunny LA, but it was a red eye, and he was very tired this morning. So I am here, but not here alone. For episode 88, I am here with Anna Krivolapova, who is the author of a tremendous collection of short stories called Incurable Graphomania. It's published by Apocalypse Confidential, friend of the pod, and it really is we're going to talk all about it and all about Anna's work, but it's a tremendous work of art, and we're very honored to have you with us right now, Anna. How,
Thank you
how
so
are you?
much. I'm great. It's great to be here. Thank you.
So, Incurable Graphomania. This was published by Apocalypse Confidential. I noticed that they entered the publishing industry, the publishing game a little while ago, a little probably before Matt and I did with New Ritual Press, and yeah, I was very I'm very impressed by, what they've put out. The book itself, I, recommend it to everyone for the reasons we'll discuss, but also it's, a beautiful, copy to have in your hands. What is your, what was your process like publishing with Apocalypse Confidential?
I had a really great experience publishing with them. Bill and Tom, I owe my life to. They did hours upon hours of editing my work because I am the type of writer where, I like to kind of throw a lot of things down and then clean it up later.
Sure.
Things don't really leave, in their final form. So there was a lot of editing work, but writing it, it actually, I actually wrote it very quickly. There are two stories in there where you can tell immediately by the length. They're both about 20 pages. And these are the Taco Bell in the center of the Pentagon and
Mm,
Jersey's Devil Breath. Those stories each, I worked on them over the course of about 6 months. And then the rest of the book just came out completely naturally. It's like I had it all pent up. All these stories were, all these characters were in my head. I wrote them. And then as the book was winding down, you know, I remember having a month where every single week I would write a new short story. And these bursts happen to me every couple of months. I mean, I'm so grateful for it because, of course, I suffer from writer's blocks occasionally. But then, like right now, I'm in a big boon with coming up with short stories.
that's great.
So, yeah, the book came out pretty naturally. It honestly was like a very natural union. I published with Apocalypse Confidential. I was so surprised, at the reception of my stories. People really liked them. So we just threw a collection together, and here we are.
Amazing. And so you mentioned that it was produced, some of the stories very quickly. That had been my experience as well with, once you get into a groove writing, when I wrote Nutcracker, it was just simply, high octane writing day in and day out. Because once you get into a process where you're writing every day, my experience is that it just kind of, um, the barriers to entering that headspace disappear, and you can just kind of slide back into it. Was that kind of your experience when, the writing really flows?
Well, do you notice that when you're really busy and you have a lot on your plate and things are not going so well, you just start writing like crazy? That's what happened to me. You know, basically,
Interesting.
I wrote the book on stolen time. I, just would wake up extremely early, maybe like 3 or 4 a.m.
Wow.
until 8 a.m., before I started my day, or just pull all-nighters. Um, I'm trying to think. Oh, so the story called Some Like It Orange, it was American Christmas, which I don't always celebrate. It kind of depresses me. I know like, I'm such a Grinch, but I didn't do anything that year, and I just churned out that entire story from start to finish. I dreamt it the night before, and then I just wrote it all down. Um, so I guess like
Interesting.
sometimes it comes in sprints.
Yeah. No, I mean that's very interesting, and it is kind of contrary to my experience, which is you kind of, I mean, at least for a longer form piece, need to really kind of get into the mind of that character, the mind of the piece, and then it just starts to flow. But like the real, barrier for me has always been finding the time and energy to devote to getting into that headspace. But I've always admired writers who are able to write on stolen time, and just even when you're more busy, you're able to but maybe especially because you're more busy, um, jam it out. And kudos to you, because that's very impressive.
It's a bit of an escape.
Yeah.
And I think that's a reason why I would encourage writers to not become full-time writers.
Oh yes.
Always have something going on, something else that takes you into the real world.
Yeah, I mean, one of the pitfalls with being a full-time writer, in my opinion, and we'll, touch on this more later, is just that the profit motive and the to the extent you can make money writing, and that's really the issue. It enters the equation, and it, perverts the art, and suddenly you're thinking about how am I going to get a book deal, because like it's a very real concern having money. Not having money is very bad in many different ways. So, that will absolutely, in my opinion, compromise your art. So the idea of like having a day job, to me, that's, not just a matter of, making sure you have stuff to write about. It's also making sure you have the freedom to actually produce unadulterated art.
All right. You know that song, The Gambler by Kenny Rogers?
Oh yeah, I like country music.
The best wisdom in that song is you never count your money when you're sitting at the table. There'll be plenty of time for counting when the dealing's done. When you're writing, don't you dare think about money, because the money gins will hear you and they'll run away from you. Don't fucking think about money when you're writing. Like
Yeah,
that's my biggest advice. Like, people are so sensitive to sussing out liars, advertisements, scams right now, that
absolutely.
artists, like, people jump down your throat trying to see if you're pandering to people. And I haven't really gotten any of those accusations. And I think it's because I really wasn't. Like, I really was kind of dumping an inner world down. Um, and I think a lot of writers, I know a lot of writers because, my friends who are a little bit, starting their careers will ask me questions like, would it be more profitable if I wrote about this or that? And I always want to like give them a swirly, like you should not be thinking about that at this
Yeah.
stage. Yeah, because
Especially with regard to literary fiction. It's like that's not the point. No one, almost no one makes real money in literary fiction, so you shouldn't even really be concerned about that, in my opinion. It's just, I mean, like, and okay, there is, I mean, I think probably the concern in literary fiction is not how do you make money, but how do I please the critics who, are looking for a certain type of story, culturally or politically, stuff of that nature. But that is, just as insidious, if not more so, I would say.
also worrying about how to brand yourself. You
Yeah.
really shouldn't worry about that because people will brand you. Um, and anything that you claim, they'll try to prove you wrong a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost like the under promise over deliver scenario. But yeah, I think after the book is done, then you really get into gear and you start thinking business like. Then you get really greedy, thinking about what kind of art would convey, like, what kind of art would sell this, for a cover.
Yeah.
Um, the look of the book is extremely important, I think.
Oh,
Want it to
absolutely.
stand out on a shelf and uh, just like who you publish with. I don't Okay, actually this is a discussion I would love to have with you. How do you
Yeah.
feel about blurbs?
Well, I mean, the thing is, on the internet with the all of these new wave authors or what have you who don't really have a lot of time. I would be lying if I said every book I've blurbed I've read. I know the person and I've read a little bit of their writing, and so I write something that I suspect to be generally true. But you know I think blurbs more than anything indicate whether it's in, our thing, new wave, whatever you want to call it, or in the mainstream industry, it's showing the audience who are this person's friends. Are they in the club? And it's not really blurbs are not really honest. They're not critical. If they're critical, they wouldn't be blurbs. So it's more just like saying like, oh, this person is part of this, club, and if you like these people, you might like this person. So that's I'm flattered when people ask me to blurb their work, but I would be lying if I said that I'm like enthusiastic in many cases. In some cases, I am. I truly am. But it's always something that is, I think, more noblesse oblige.
Interesting. I've been asked to blurb books, and I'm always really flattered and just surprised. I'm always surprised. Wow, why would you want that? My name on your book. But it's very flattering. But at the same time, I'm not really into blurbs because they always feel a little bit like an ad.
Yeah.
I will say I really like the like cheeky negative blurbs
Oh,
that
yeah, that's
people
fine.
do. Like worst book in the world, worst book that Stephen King ever read or something like that. I would love if that was my blurb. I hate Stephen King. I don't really know why. I just like decided to hate him one day, and it's like he just I don't know. He has like Grinch physiognomy. Like he's asking for it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about King is I, it's been a while since I've read his writing, but I do remember it being very good. I don't think there's really anyone who is saying that he's not an impressive writer. I mean, even if he has ghostwriters or whatever, the original books were largely, I imagine, his, and he churns them out like, or at least at the beginning, it was truly him churning them out like some type of madman. But you have this, really um, annoying disconnect when you see him on Twitter. And I mean, yeah, and you
Exactly.
see, and this is true for many of the writers and artists that I appreciate or, like Dan Carlin, the hardcore history podcaster. He, his episodes about World War One and Alexander the Great and many like he's produced such an impressive volume of history podcasting that then when I see him on the timeline being like as the people say suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, this is just like it's beneath you. And I mean I could say the same for someone who Dan Carlin hates, and maybe this person also hates Dan, Martyr Maid. His podcasts are great. His Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem about the history of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict going up to 1948. Really impressive, and also just he's the breadth of the work he's put out is tremendous. But then he gets into these, things on Twitter where he's, saying things that are, beneath him as well, in my
Hmm.
opinion. And it's just like, well, you don't want to see that in your authors. And so, I mean, my approach to social media has been I treat it as this is an extension of my authorial presence. And the Dan Baltic character is a character. And I tweet from that character voice. Generally, the I mean, probably the times where I'm being most myself is when people are like, "Oh, this is a sincere Baltic banger," or "This is a wisdom banger," or something. Like, I will provide like business or personal advice, and that is like actually more me. Not to say the horny stuff or other stuff is not me. It is me, but it's playing up to a character. And but I mean crucially, like as I'm doing this, I'm always cognizant that this is me communicating with my readers, and they don't want an author who is a whiny, annoying guy. They don't want that. They don't want an author who is going to like, say like, "Oh, I support this thing that you hate, and now you're gonna look at me differently." So yeah, I mean, like I, keep everything like pretty vague. I don't think that anyone would be surprised by any of my views, really. But I see no need to kind of belabor them or engage in the politics of the day because it's something that is um, beneath me as an author, I think.
I think, yeah, there's the current thing is like just it's exhausted, I think. Yeah, Stephen King, a classic example of separate the art from the artist. All of his movies, every movie ever made of his work is incredible.
Yeah,
I love Thinner.
I haven't
Um,
seen that in a while,
so
but yeah,
some of the early ones are so good.
Carrie.
I don't like Carrie.
Really? Oh
I
wow,
don't like when no, I don't like Carrie.
interesting. The
I don't,
Shining, surely.
don't like The Shining.
You don't like The Shining?
No,
That's oh my God. I mean, that was so.
and I don't like it.
Okay, it I didn't really love, but The Shining was just so hypnotic, so like truly like one of the scarier, I mean not scary in the sense of like jump scare, but like scary in the sense of like, capturing horror on film. Like that to me is up there with in a very different way, something like Come and See, where it captures like artistically capturing horror?
So I like Stand By Me, and I really like Cat's Eye.
Okay.
And then I think there's this book. No, it's a movie. It's very simple, just like about like a bunch of teenage boys murdering a kid.
Okay.
I like, it's very River's Edge. I love.
Yeah, that's the David Lynch, right?
No, River's Edge. It could be a David Lynch. No, it has Dennis Hopper with the sex doll. Like Howling Mutants
Okay,
Bishop.
that's how I know it. Yeah.
I love that film. Keanu and Donovan's daughter, Eon Sky, is in it. Crispin Glover's best role. He plays a ride or die best friend who is just so like. I love Crispin Glover because he has bodies buried in the walls of his Czech mansion. He and Kevin Spacey, I adore them as actors because I really believe them.
Yeah. Yeah,
As
definitely
terrible
has
as it
that
might sound.
energy.
Yeah. I mean, they are channeling something from below, and
Yeah.
it's fantastic. It's working.
Yeah, I mean, I think, sadly, you could probably say that to some extent for many of our celebrities.
Very true.
But
A lot of them try to pretend, like Sean Penn is an example of someone who sold his soul, but is completely void of any spirituality. He literally just like sold his soul to the CIA.
yeah. Um, but yeah,
Same with George Clooney.
I mean, essentially, very little would surprise me about anything that unfortunately, someone with a lot of power and money does in America or anywhere really, because when you have certain resources as well as certain pressures on you to like participate in X, Y, and Z. Yeah, people are people, and they're just going to respond as you would respond, and that's perhaps a reductive and nihilistic way of looking at life, but I think it probably bears out when you look at the private lives of the rich and famous, and yeah,
You
this
need
is
to read
something.
the Klaus Kinski autobiography because he was incredibly humble, incredibly like materially humble. He slept outside. He's the
Wow.
best point of Klaus Kinski's life and that he describes is when he was living in a small house in Lagunitas and washing clothes in the tub with candles with his son Nikolai. All of his children have Russian names. It's wonderful. But Klaus Kinski was such a rare example of this actor who reached incredible fame, just unbelievable fame. And he was really a master. Like whenever you see his films, even if it's like some crazy Italian B movie horror that's a little bit silly and hard to take seriously, with the script, he's
Yeah.
bringing it 100%. And then when you read his autobiography, you find out that like when he was filming that Wojak, not Woj, oh my God, that's embarrassing. That Herzog film about the guy in the camp. Let me look
Jeez,
it up.
I don't know.
Um, Kinski Herzog. So he had like hepatitis, when he was filming some of his best work.
Oh wow.
Extremely sick. He constantly had the clap, constantly on and off. He literally fucked everything that moved. Like the way his first daughter was conceived was through a threesome with two sisters.
Wow.
And one of the sisters got pregnant. And
That's something.
oh, the entire biography is crazy. And don't listen to Werner Herzog. It's real. I believe it. I believe that after he died, people conveniently started saying that he was lying about things because it wasn't flattering. But
Yeah.
I honestly believe him. Like he just he has so many wonderful stories. Like he has a story about being in the middle of nowhere and this taxi driver drives him like an hour up a mountain to have sex with a giantess. giant woman who is like 7 feet tall. Like he has so many funny sex stories, and I usually don't like that. It's usually extremely cloying and annoying. Oh, when women write it, I won't even like look at it. Um,
Really?
oh,
That's
ew.
interesting.
It's so tacky. But when Klaus does it, it's funny. Like he is the exception to everything.
I
And
think when men write about sex, they have the opportunity to make it a little more funny, a little more, which like someone like Delicious Tacos, that's like, in my opinion, a good example where like deriving that sort of, goofy whatever, it's just kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm being I'm seeing this through the lens of a man, so it's that's how I see it. But women's sex is kind of wrapped up with this area of vulnerability and this area of real potential consequences and pain and what have
I
you.
think
So
women
it's
just
more
reach for the
fraught.
low-hanging fruit, like the low-hanging fruit of gross out humor, or look how much this person humiliated me.
Yeah,
Like the gross out humor, I just don't like. Also, don't make me pity you.
yeah.
Like if you're telling me a sex story, please don't make me pity you. Like that's gonna make me just feel strange. And Klaus is just so like ridiculous about it constantly, and he's not gross about it. And he has such a gusto when he's describing this. I mean, honestly, this is must read for you.
I should, yeah. His is it his autobiography?
Yeah, it's Kinski Uncut. It's what Ethan Hawke is reading in the very beginning of the Linklater trilogy,
Oh, okay, on the
Before
train.
Sunrise,
Yeah.
which is so funny because he's reading an edition of it called All I Need Is Love, I think. Um,
Okay,
there are two editions because posthumously some people in his circle edited some things out.
I see.
I have Kinski Uncut. You know, I have everything
I
on my
will
shelf.
order it today because I mean
It's
that
hard to find. It's
the is
rare.
it really?
Mhm.
Um, I mean interesting because there are obviously books that are somewhat banned, which are hard to find. I can't imagine that, but I mean I guess simply by virtue of being out of print. But I would think, I've seen enough about Kinski on the timeline, many to some extent thanks to you, but I think others as well. So I would think there would be a renewed interest in his novels or his autobiography and his work. But
It's so good.
I will have to check it out.
I ordered mine from the UK. It took like 3 months to come, and it's just beautiful. Prized
Interesting.
possession.
I noticed that you have something called Kinski Fridays on the
Yes.
timeline. It's is it posts of Klaus or Natasha or both or
Any of them.
any
One day I'm gonna
Kinski?
switch it up and post like Sonia.
Oh, is Sonia the granddaughter or
Yes, like there
okay?
are Kinskis you've never even heard of.
Are they all actors?
Honestly, a lot of them are theater kids, actors, models. They all live in LA.
Okay, yeah. He has a real like in again, this is something I'm going to pronounce Aguirre.
Yeah, Agri and the Wrath of God.
Aguirre, the Wrath of God, just a kind of like people toss around the word ancient man, but like yes, a truly kind of like ancient man visage and presence that he brings to that, which it clearly would not have worked as a film, in my opinion, without Kinski's very expressive embodiment of this conquistador character.
And he doesn't speak that much in the film.
Yeah.
Actually, in a lot of his films, he doesn't speak that much. And you only notice it as you're watching it because his role is so expressive, and he steals attention in that amazing Western film called The Great Silence, Il Gran Silenzio. It's a winter Western, which I'm a sucker for.
Okay.
And Klaus really doesn't have a ton of screen time, but every time he's on screen, you just are blown away by him. Honestly, that's a great film. The main male character who's mute is so sexy. He's such a drive prototype.
Interesting. And like indeed not talking a lot was part of the appeal of the driver. So yeah, maybe being mute doesn't really undercut that very much.
And I think if you're a man, you can be mute, have like a broken leg, like as long as something works, it's just I think like the disability might actually be a plus.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean like there's definitely and I mean this is like kind of I hate to tie it to something as pedestrian as the gender wars or the dating talk, but I do think the incels are really underselling women and women's ability to be attracted to men when they just immediately conclude if you don't have a Chad jaw and you're not 6 foot you can't attract women. That's not even true on the apps. That's but much less in person. And in my experience, so much of female attraction is the product of attraction to presence. And someone with a some scar on his face or a bum leg, that does suggest some sort of like, oh, there's an interesting backstory here. This
I
is
think it's about taking risks,
yeah.
honestly, and like also standing out because women have a short, like everyone has a short attention span. You got to take risks and stand out. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Easier said than done, though.
Yeah. No, it yeah, definitely the ability to kind of like mark yourself as someone who is unique. That is something that is probably less unfortunately in some way less valuable for women but valuable for men. And men don't nearly take advantage of that enough.
I love writing male characters.
I've noticed that, and you did it very well. That was something I wanted. It's not in our notes, but I wanted to remark on it because in I think the well, one of my favorite stories was the Ivan's Nightmare, the story where Incurable Graphomania is name dropped and you got into the mind of a male potential mass shooter in a way that felt very organic. I felt through I felt the prose reminded me a little bit of a less comic version of the narration from Nutcracker. And yeah, I mean, like, and I certainly would say that Spencer Grunhauer, the protagonist of Nutcracker, is a very much a male creation, and so I was quite impressed by the level you were able to get into the male head. I don't think I could really, or I haven't yet done that with a female character.
Well, thank you so much. That story was really fun to write. It that was one of the stories in Incurable that just was completely spontaneous. I was laying down on a sheepskin rug, and all of a sudden, and listening to, I think it was like it might have been Swan Lake or Tchaikovsky or something like that. And all of a sudden, I imagined this young man in my mind. In college, I met so many Russia weebs,
Mm.
like Slavophiles, like American guys who really wanted to be Russian and just loved everything Russian. And I really, really appreciate them. Sadly, most of them have gone to work for the CIA or such organizations or journalists. A lot of them are journalists, to be honest, which is okay. We can't all be perfect. But like I was imagining this guy and the mold in his apartment and his crush, who is his teacher, is very heavily pregnant. And there's this feeling on campus of like everything's about to blow. And it's kind of like all surrounded about like his crush is like, I think like for a man, um, I can't imagine how it must feel to be in love with a woman who's pregnant because with someone else's child, because it's over for you or it's not. But you have to have like an extremely sacrificing soul.
Yeah,
And I was thinking about him sitting in class every day watching her. I also did have a very beautiful professor once who was very pregnant, and she just had this like very godly maternal glow to her while
sure.
she was teaching us about Dostoevsky. And I just like was imagining like a guy named John every day sitting in class and just like fantasizing about her, fantasizing about like being her Russian husband. He wears like a cologne that her father would have worn because in the Soviet Union it was very hard to access perfumes. So
Sure.
everyone loved collecting them. Like Russians are obsessed with perfume. I discovered Perfume Nationalist through Googling like my favorite perfume, trying to buy it.
Yeah.
And like in the most organic way, which is very funny to think about. But so he surrounds himself with all these Russian totems. And to him, being Russian is being opulent and sexy and beautiful and a sensualist and following your soul. Like he's reading the Brothers Karamazov and he's going through book three. And book three is a series of drunk conversations, different permutations of guys sitting in a room having the same conversation. And the mold and the crush and just like he hates his grad students. Like he only respects one of them who
Yeah.
just is just some guy. And so I liked all of this tension building up. And there's also like the kind of like common theme of plagiarism throughout the story.
Yeah. I noticed that.
Yeah, so I kind of was imagining people that I had encountered in college. Like what was their inner life like?
I mean, you embodied it very well in the sense of the kind of the grandiosity as he was describing himself as a sensualist and further describing that as, someone who has an excess of sentimentality and just kind of like bloviating and laying the groundwork for a sort of grandiose worldview that culminates in, his plans, which, are alluded to, but then like more fully explained. And that that tone, that voice was, in my opinion, very male. And yeah, I was, very impressed that you were able to get into it. Um, as long as we're on the topic of incurable graphomania, and which is, something he diagnoses himself with, I figured we might, benefit from jumping into the note here
Yeah.
and the story itself, the extent to which this main character teases out this idea, as I mentioned, of himself as a sensualist, and that being an abundance of sentimentality, and he diagnoses himself with incurable graphomania, which is, as I understand it, graphomania is a compulsion to write and to kind of expound. And I this struck me as a sort of exaggeration of the artistic temperament. And because, I will often, for instance, like find myself alone in my apartment, just thinking about stuff I want to write, but also like, so I tweet a lot throughout the day, and, these thoughts kind of come to me, and, I'll feel like moments of grandiosity and like thinking like, I know how people should live, et cetera, et cetera. And that in this character leads to a conviction that he should, commit an act of mass violence. And that to me, I mean, perhaps I should not admit this, but I do see the kind of through line between like feeling grandiose and like finding yourself like oh yeah, that's a plan that is probably appropriate and makes sense. The kind of artist writer to mass shooter pipeline, I can kind of see that sketched out how it works. But the thing is, it really goes against the grain of what we have been told is the thinking of the mass shooter. Especially, I'm thinking of recent journalism and literary journalism about it. I very much respect Catherine D. She had a series on Adam Lanza and Matt Pegas, my own co-host. He's also he's written about the Vegas shooter, and the kind of conclusion that they came to, that others seem to have come to, Jordan Peterson among them, is that it's the result of this kind of paralyzing, or not paralyzing, but deadly nihilism, where you've come to, kind of not believe anything, and that is so painful that you want to take revenge on the world. And to me, I think that may indeed be true for some of them. But I think the path to that place of mind is it's constructed by this sort of worldview or temperament, because you have to believe in things very strongly. You have to feel things very strongly to even have a very strong reaction to nihilism, to even like embrace something such as nihilism, because the average person, I don't think feels things so strongly that in the absence of true everyday suffering would become ensconced in a violent nihilistic worldview. And I think it's kind of the artistic temperament is a sufficient, or is a necessary but not sufficient condition to get you there. And just before I stop, and you can respond, of course, and I'm talking too much for a host, but
They're fine.
the famously the case of the person you should never say in media or on podcasts of Hitler. Many people claim that he was an INFJ, and okay, the Myers-Briggs thing is like has been, I think, largely discredited. But I think it is an interesting thing that people think that about him. And the INFJ personality type is a personality type that is grounded in an enhanced sensitivity to the feelings of others. So it's kind of like, well, how is it that, Hitler would have this like great level of empathy, but yet be capable of what he was capable of? And the thinking with regard to him, and with regard to, I think, other INFJ types who have done bad things, is when under certain conditions, the if the that desire to help or to feel for what others feel, if that becomes perverted, if that if that instead of enabling this person to help, if they're thwarted, if they can become very vengeful and very vindictive. And I think the artistic temperament is capable of great uh, great vindictiveness.
So this is a strange comparison, but the artist and the activist are not the same, but they are similar, and they're driven by a similar compulsion. And the activist, in my opinion, is someone who sees something and they can't sit still, even if they're making it worse. They have to do something, even if they know they're making it worse, even if in their mind they know that it's impotent or even like hurting their cause. They have to do the thing. There is an energy that's going to come out somehow. And I think art is like this. And I think with the sentimental person, they're so full of pity that they need to destroy the object of their pity in
Hmm.
order to not feel it anymore. And that's
Interesting.
why sentimental people are terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that. And yeah, I mean, I think any sort of excess of emotion that is, not moored to, love of, your family or your spouse or, whatever is just kind of like, well, it's out there and it can do stuff. And it won't always be good stuff because if you, really, love your family, yeah, generally that's not well, I mean, maybe I'm speaking too soon there because you can have all sorts of family relations, and
Mhm.
yeah, it's uh, powerful emotion breeds powerful consequences.
In the
Uh,
first person shooter story, which is also the another mass
yeah,
shooter story, it's
a
the complete
successful one.
opposite. Oh, thank you. It's
Oh
a
no, no, I
complete.
meant that yeah, it is successful, but the character is seemingly. So I did have
Oh,
some
yes,
questions about
yes.
that,
Like
but
the shooting
yeah,
it actually happens.
yes,
Her situation is the complete opposite because she feels nothing. She's trying to feel nothing. Uh, this story is all about obsolescence. So the main character, you see her walking through the mall, and her fiance just left her for an Indian woman. And she goes to the beach, and her family made a lot of money off of pharmaceuticals, which is used to be, a source of respect and pride. Like the Sackler family, the
yeah,
Johnson Johnson families, like they're very respected. Now it's taboo.
yeah,
Like the Sacklers are in hiding, like they changed their names. Um, so that story deals with obsolescence, and she's fighting like the numbness, and she feels so numb that she just does something stupid and impulsive. And also, it's implied that she doesn't really know how to use a gun. Of course, like it's not part
yeah,
of her lifestyle. She's just like a normal, like rich Philly girl who lives in the city. So it's interesting, like to write a shooter story from a woman's perspective because it's completely different and it doesn't have this level of sentimentality or hate. Like she doesn't hate the kids. She's
yeah.
just not in reality. She's just very drunk and very like nothing is real. Her entire life has not been real. For the first time in her life, she's facing some kind of rejection.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it did very much seem like it was a kind of almost like in The Stranger, where, he encounters the Arab on the beach and he's just like, he just kills him. And
Yeah.
it's kind of like, well, why did you do that? And it's like, well, I don't know. I think that is a very realistic also way of because yeah, certainly you have, many people who get there through means that are mysterious and they couldn't probably even explain it to themselves.
I don't think a lot of shooters are operating. I think a lot of them are kind of in a haze, floating in unreality. It's very narrative driven. And I'm excluding the mass shootings that are spontaneous or the mass shootings that are, like, for example, the ones that don't really get on the news are the ones where someone gets fired from their job, goes back to work, shoots everybody. That's a really common
Oh yeah.
mass shooting format. But we like to talk about. I think when we think about mass shootings, we think about schools. We think about slaughtering sheep.
Yeah.
that's a really important aspect of it. Like, they have to be innocents. And I think, like, the people who do slaughter the innocents, they're just not operating like, those people are operating in more of a reality than the people who shoot up adults who could defend themselves. Like, actually, now that I think of it, I think it's, like, more in, like, they know what they're doing more when
Yeah.
they're choosing easy targets.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's not as reactive. I mean, so like you, and I think they have made arguments trying to like claim temporary insanity as a result of being fired or something like that. And but yeah, it is some type of like real shock that causes a disgruntled worker to shoot up a workplace. And but with, many of these school shooting or other, mass shootings by young men, there's, no clear kind of like kickoff inciting incident. It's more, it is a sort of premeditated plan. And, obviously driven by ideas that are
Like,
not,
aura farming a little bit,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
not to be reductive, but it's true. I think a lot of those people are, like, incredibly bored
Yeah.
or, like, on SSRIs or something.
The mentality of the mass shooters and the extent to which um, the level of premeditation in connection with non-workplace related mass shootings, whether that is in fact more premeditated than the disgruntled adults and stuff of that nature. And I mean that's an interesting question. And I did just want to kind of tie this back to the artistic temperament. Um, what to to kind of bring this home to us. um I mean, certainly when I am writing, when I am posting whatever, I do feel a certain level of grandiosity and not um a violent sentiment, but like sentiment. And I could see how, if you felt differently, if you, but nevertheless, had the same level of, like, let's say instead of writing comic novels about, semi-tragic, buffoonish characters, I were, writing about, the struggles of my, oppressed, race or something. I could see how that could lead to, increased fixation on certain ideas, certain, and ultimately, potentially certain actions. So I guess what I'm saying here is what is it? Do you feel this when you're writing? Do you feel a certain like level of like I'm creating, stories, I'm creating worlds. I feel like I'm channeling something beyond myself, and thus I feel agentic and powerful in a way that I, don't feel in day-to-day life, maybe.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, there is that, like, escapist fantasy element of it for sure. But to me, it always feels like the stories exist already.
Okay,
It almost feels more like archaeology than building
interesting.
something sometimes, um, for me. But that's just kind of my writing process. Um, I'm working on some really long projects right now, and it's interesting how different that is because a short story is like how I described, where the idea or a little vignette already exists. Like, someone's probably already thought of it, you know?
Yeah.
But then you can kind of uncover it, and there's so much omitted that it becomes a little bit of like a parable or, this more universal thing or fable. But then when you're writing a novel, that's when you're really some kind of mm, like marionette worker. And
Yeah.
I think that's what you're describing. Because I haven't, when I wrote the short stories, it was completely different than writing novels. Completely different.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really enjoy writing novels. I mean, I enjoy writing, period. I really do enjoy writing, and I actually think that if you don't enjoy writing, you just shouldn't write.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I think it should be, I think it should come kind of easily a little bit, because sometimes you can tell when something was forced.
Yeah. I mean, many
Yeah.
people want to write a no I mean, like I've seen this I mean, this is I mean, like embarrassing, not really for me, more for the women, but on like dating apps, a lot of like, I mean, I'm, heterosexual, so, matching with women, and they say like, this year I really want to write my novel, or I want to write, and it's like, okay, or like in my life, I want to, my life's dream is to write a novel, and it's like, well, just do it. There's no, it's not like you're like my live stream is to buy an island in Tahiti. Like you can do the novel. You just gotta write it. It's like to advertise to me like on an app like my live stream is to write a novel is to say like yeah, I can't get started on my dream. It's, I'm either lying that it's my dream or it's important to me to like seem like I have this dream, but I don't really, I like the idea of it. I don't really like the process.
I actually wrote about this, a character like this in Heart of a Dog.
Oh yeah.
Wyatt, he never explicitly says that he's writing a book, but throughout the story, he records a couple paragraphs at a time into a dictaphone.
Yeah, yeah.
And he studied Russian literature at University of Indiana. And he has a Jewish rich wife who doesn't really need him for anything. He's kind of just there.
Animal control
Every
guy.
woman, yeah, every woman in his life nags him. His neighbor nags him to like yell at the other neighbors for poisoning her koi pond. This homeless girl who befriends him is nagging him to save some dogs and then like save the fish at the pet store. Like, and so all these women are nagging him, and he falls in love with this woman at REI and just starts stalking her, and then finds out that her family has like a dog fighting ring, and he actually needs to do his job for once. But Wyatt, while he's driving around his job that he doesn't care about, he doesn't really actually care about animals.
Yeah.
Like, he loves his dogs, but it's just kind of a job for him, and people have to like beg him to save anyone. And he's just kind of like a lazy like dude that'll just like do the bare minimum. And he's driving around and like recording his book, thinking about writing a book, but never like doing it, never taking that step. And I wrote him because everyone who's ever written a book has gone through that for years, like literal years of fermenting, of kind of like, I'm not good enough, or what a stupid idea, or it would be so silly, or nobody's going to read it, or who am I to write a book? You
Yeah.
have to go through years and years and years of that humiliation, of that self-flagellation before you can make anything good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. When I was reading it, it wasn't clear to me that he was a frustrated artist. Maybe it should have been. I now in retrospect, I'm like,
Like
why
you always
was
want to
he?
be, you know.
Why was he recording this on Dictiva? I thought like he was like maybe wanted to put a report together for like the Animal Control Agency, or he wanted to like, in fact, the way I read it was kind of like, and the takeaway for me from Heart of a Dog was he was like enchanted by this beautiful woman who was part of this seedy underworld of extorting puppy mills, and he was just like so entranced by this whole world. He wanted to, he wanted to, be part of it, or he wanted to stop it. He wanted to have like more of a role in it. And so like writing it, the dictaphone was kind of like part of his like attempt to get deeper into it. Like I'm more of a kind of not a pretentious like, oh, I'm a writer, but you don't really write. More of an earnest like, I want to do something and I don't know how to do it, so I'm just gonna start like talking into a dictaphone. And I saw him as like a pretty like earnest character. Um, and the I actually found the end to be kind of haunting, in a way that, was to me maybe just as haunting as the ending of Ivan's Nightmare, in the sense that he is, basically told to drop it. And these, extortions are going to continue going on, and this kind of like this underground puppy mill. And these are not like very high stakes. It's not like satanic or anything exactly, but it's like this kind of seamy underworld is just going to continue. And he saw a glimpse of it, and Dina at the end, it was kind of like, okay, you had your tour, it's done. And that to me was actually, that was a very haunting type of and then he's just like, yep, it's time to go home to my wife. And that's it. And it I thought that was a very well done ending, because it subverts the expectations of the reader in a way that is very dramatically satisfying.
It's about how Maryland is a little bit haunted
I
too.
believe
At
that.
the ending, I think there's something that happens to people's minds in Maryland where you stop reacting to things properly. Everyone is kind of a little bit duller and like less emotional. I don't know. Like there's a weird stuff. And so it's really interesting to hear you describe the story from your perspective, because for me, like the nail salon, the like poppy mills, like that's my overworld. That's not an underworld. This is all like everyone knows about this, like in
Interesting.
my diaspora. Like this is just like what people do. And I did want to write that because I do understand like how it's a little unusual if you take a step back, like the beef between like the puppy mill girls can
Yeah.
get kind of fucked up. And so I like did was like, I'm gonna take a step back and write this from like an American dude named Wyatt's perspective and like see what he makes of it. Because he will probably react more normally, but there's still like a numbness to the way Wyatt reacts to all of this. And
Yeah.
the ending, I wanted it to be like a heartwarming, sad ending, almost like a Soviet film that ends like, no, ladna, that's just how life is. And everything's like tragic and burnt to boards and just like it's like a sad ending, but it's also wistful.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's what I meant by haunting. It's like sad and not, it doesn't deliver finality. And that to me, that is like, so like the ending of The Sopranos, if you're familiar,
That's infamous.
yeah.
It just went to
Yeah,
black, right?
to black.
Yeah.
I mean, that is like, well, I mean, that is like haunting in a kind of very direct way, but also haunting in the sense that it is like very unsatisfying. You don't know exactly. You're not given a catharsis, and that is that's what I felt with that story, and it was clearly, at least in my interpretation, an intentional choice, which I think was a very good choice.
Thank you. To I try not to let it influence me too much, like influence the narrative too much, but I do try a little bit to have more variety, more happy endings,
Yeah.
because I think I have too many bad endings or violent endings. And the happy ending in Heart of a Dog, if you ask me, I would say Heart of a Dog and Refrigerator Death Index have happy endings, but people scoff when I say that.
Interesting. It may be the Soviet American divide.
I also think Jersey Devil's Breath has a really happy ending
Absolutely. I can see
because, yeah,
that.
love wins.
It has to.
Yeah.
Um, this seems like a good segue to talk about voice. It's one of the topics on our list. And I mean, as we mentioned, all of these stories, many of them, and this is one of the more impressive characteristics of your writing, you embody these different voices. And so the voice of the main character, John, I believe his name is, in Ivan's Nightmare, is very distinct and quite distinct from the voice of, say, Wyatt, as we were just discussing in Heart of a Dog, very distinct from the voice of the female protagonist from first person shooter. And these, my experience with writing and finding a voice is, yeah, you will find a kind of very specific character voice. The close third person that I used throughout Nutcracker is not exactly something that I replicate in all of my writing, but the other kind of you know pieces of fiction that I've written, um, short stories. Only one recently, which was a sort of masculinist sci-fi piece that I did for Passage for one of their collections. Only that was truly a departure from my usual voice. And I think, in any of my writing, even my like personal essays, you could read it and say, "Oh, wow, that's the Nutcracker voice," or something like that. And I found it very impressive that we could go from story to story here. And I mean, yeah, I do know that you're the author, and yes, I can see certain, techniques and patterns that are repeated. But in terms of like the actual tone and flow of the voice, they were very different. And how do you do that? What is your process for finding not only the voice of the piece of the narrator, but as also finding the stories?
So the stories kind of come like I notice like throughout the day I'll observe something or just like being bantering with friends and think, oh wait, I want to elaborate on that. Or a character will pop into my head, or my friend will be like telling me about their coworker, or I'll just remember someone from my past. And so I start. It's very character driven. Like I start with people,
Hmm,
um, and I mean maybe that's a really simplistic answer, but also one time an editor gave me a really great compliment where I was talking about how I was insecure about um, writing a story, writing stories of different genres. Like, I was like, oh, sci-fi. Sometimes sci-fi can be very cheesy. Even though Philip K. Dick wrote my favorite book, I can't get into a lot of his sci-fi. Even Time Out of Joint was a little too much for me.
hmm.
And although I really enjoyed that book, The Truman Show is based off of it.
Interesting. What is your favorite book by Philip K. Dick?
Oh, A Scanner Darkly. It's a super hyper realistic story about a group of drug addicts, and one of them is an informant.
I've seen the
And
movie, of course.
oh, it's so good. The movie adaptation is pretty good, but the book is just fantastic. It's funny.
Hmm.
It's like it never gets boring.
I'll have to read it.
The banter between all the friends is just like so engaging. All of the reason it's so different from the rest of Philip K. Dick's work, though, is because it's kind of like he presented a mess of his notes and diaries from the mental hospital in Sheepshead Bay, Canada.
Okay.
There were also in that pile, there were letters from his wife complaining about his drug addiction and everything. And so he went to, it might have been Bantam, but he went to his publisher with this total mess, just got out of rehab. There's an editor, a woman who worked there, who took it and made a book. So honestly, like Skinner Darkly is like written by this woman who worked at Bantam.
Very
I
interesting.
wouldn't go that far, but she sewed the quilt together in such a perfect, engaging, quick way. It's a masterpiece.
Yeah, no, I will have to check out the book because I, enjoyed the movie and yeah, no, it with such a backstory, I gotta check it out.
Well, like I was saying, so the editor, I was kind of insecure about branching out into different ways, and he said, "But your version is going to be great
Hmm.
because like you've already tried your hand at different genres and it worked, it was successful." So I think that like external validation kind of gave me the permission to just like try my hand at whatever. And I've
Yeah.
been leaning into that a lot. I've been writing this summer I wrote some historical fiction
Okay.
about Ong's Hat, New Jersey, and which a lot of people aren't familiar with it unless you're from South Jersey or you have a lot of connections there. But there's this, it's not even a town, it's like a spot, and it's supposed to be a time portal.
Okay. Well, what's
Yeah,
it called?
Ong's Hat,
Ung's
like
Hat.
ONG.
ONG.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's a legend. It might not even be real, who knows? But the Jersey Devil is in those, it's in the Pine Barrens.
okay.
Speaking of Sopranos,
Yeah. That's
I'm
definitely ripe for exploitation.
oh yeah, I'm really into South Jersey and Central Jersey history.
That
It's
is
so haunted.
definitely yeah, I was gonna say if because we were talking about haunted regions, South Jersey, yeah, and the Pine Barrens definitely feels very haunted. In a not also like there's a very New England way of feeling haunted, and it feels more gothic, more southern.
I think another thing to answer your question succinctly, maybe I can write so many characters because I'm haunted a little bit.
Okay.
I was cursed in utero. My mom didn't give a gypsy woman money, and she pointed at my mom's stomach and was like, and started spitting. So
Yikes.
I could be a little haunted by a Moscow gypsy woman.
I mean, as good an explanation as any, but that thankfully
Stephen
has
King has the same story, actually.
gifted the rest of us with a lot of wonderful stories. So, could be worse. You could have been like
Yeah,
born without a leg or something.
that's true. Yeah, as gypsies go. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, finding different voices, that's, no matter how you do it, that's a really impressive, virtuosic act for a writer, in my opinion. So hats off to you there. The Another item that I was very impressed and intrigued by was when you were on the Book Club from Hell podcast, friend of New Right, friend of New Ritual Press, Jack and Levi. Um, you discussed your, and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but your technique of rewriting your stories, which, if I understand correctly from that podcast, is to delete the story and rewrite it. And to me, that just sounds just like a monstrous burden to undertake because like
No, I
after I
don't delete it.
finished, oh, all right.
I don't delete it. I just open up a new document
Okay.
and I write the chapters from memory, piece by piece. And I observe what stays, like what was most memorable and what was forgotten. And oftentimes, what was forgotten was pretty good. But sometimes it's just like scaffolding, it's just bad.
Okay.
I think shorter is better, is always, always, always better. I know it's not ideal for publishers. Publishers like a big fat novel, but
Yeah.
I really think that short is best. Brevity is wit. Especially nowadays, everyone's attention span is pretty fried. So if you really want someone to read your story, from front to back, or your novel. Like, I really think you should edit. Also, like, David Foster Wallace, obviously a genius. Imagine David Foster Wallace's work if he actually had an editor that was just like, had a Sith in their hand.
Yeah.
I think it would be better. I really think it would be
Oh,
better.
absolutely. I mean, these giant tomes, I mean, I have not read Infinite Jest. I don't have that
I
kind of
actually really
time.
liked it.
All right. I just like the idea of like this is well over 1,000 pages. I, I cannot do that. I don't have the time for this. It's the only book I read for 6 months. So,
I
I
enjoyed
mean,
it, and
in a
I
different,
think that like it made me feel affectionate towards David Foster Wallace in a way I never had before. And I
that's
think that's
good.
like why Infinite Jest is a little bit of like a cult book, is because you just like really get to know him through it.
Yeah.
And it's almost a little bit too diary-like. It's almost a little bit too like exegesis of David Foster Wallace. But I was entertained, especially by the halfway house stuff. The addiction stuff was the most interesting part for me, which surprised me because reading about addiction and people doing drugs really annoys me. It's just kind of overdone a
Yeah.
little bit. Um, I grew up reading like Requiem for a Dream was a book I really loved in high school and things like that.
Selby is great.
He's great.
Last
Um,
Exit to Brooklyn, that was my favorite of his.
Train Spotting,
Yeah, I like
Irvin
Irvine
Welsh.
Welsh.
Yeah, that I really liked that genre in high school, and now I think I kind of like got out of my system a little bit.
Yeah.
But
No,
Infinite
it's
Jest never. It wrote about it in like almost like a Wes Anderson-y way.
yeah. It I'm thinking back to the process you described of rewriting from memory, but keeping the original there. And to me, the rewriting process, the editing process, has always been a very um, not just a technical process, but a writing process in and of itself. So I think, maybe as you describe it now, it doesn't sound as foreign to me because my own process is in order to get the words out. If for instance I'm typing on my screen with fiction, to me that just it absolutely doesn't work because I mean number one, my like kind of the channel between my brain and the output is not through typing, it's through writing. So like I write longhand, but a kind of
You
ancillary
write
benefit,
longhand?
yeah. and
That's
in
so interesting.
and an ancillary benefit of that is if I see something on the screen, it's just like burned into my brain. This is what I wrote. Whereas if I'm putting it into a notebook, I can just kind of like jam and I like a sentence or whatever. And, it's just kind of like, I don't know exactly how to get to the next sentence or connect it. I'll just, slap something in there and it doesn't bother me. I can just like keep going and because ultimately, if I look at, 15 notebook pages and they're all kind of like barely decipherable, like I can barely read my own handwriting. It just enables me to, really forget that I'm even writing anything for posterity and just, get the words out there, get into a flow state, and then a kind of like the process of editing it is itself a writing process because I look at what I wrote and I have to do it soon because if I don't do it soon, I will literally not be able to read my writing in many cases. So I, then translate it into prose that works. And that process of editing, it's not the same as I don't run into writer's block really because the the words are out there. The story is out there. It's on the page. I'm just, figuring out, oh, well, how best to say that? How best to, that was kind of sloppy. That was kind of, so I think we almost in a weird way have a similar process in that I put out a first version, which is the kind of like, balls to the wall, just get it out there, version. And then I come back and I edit. And it seems like your editing is, you edit by rewriting from memory, and your memory is, what guides you through what was, what remains is what was, probably most important.
Yeah, and I think so. I write a mix of longhand and typing as well, and
Very cool.
I'm impressed that you write such long prose longhand. I So there was a story that Mumu House published recently. It's called The Opportunist. It's about a couple arguing in a vulture sanctuary. I wrote that in a notebook in a hammock in Spain in the vulture sanctuary. And I noticed that when I write longhand, it's perfectly chronological and I barely need to edit.
Mm,
And that is such a
interesting.
huge perk, but that only works for very short fiction. That story, I believe, was less than 4 pages, 3,000 words. So for very short stories, I highly recommend doing it longhand. Pretend you're sitting like in a test at school and just get it out. Um, but so the editing process, the reason I like to rewrite is because I'm very, very picky about the cleanliness of my visual field.
Mm.
Like I like an empty desk. I really like, no clutter. I
You
when
would
I'm
not like a lawyer's desk, let me tell you.
Oh, I know
Uh,
lawyers. Yeah, it's a mess. Paper, like walls of paper. So I think that the rewriting process to me is having a clean visual field. And because editing, you're staring at these words, it starts to get meaningless. It starts to get jumbled. Like copy editing is such a chore for me.
yeah,
And but I need to do it because like you, I have this process where you just throw everything on the page and then clean it up later.
yeah, absolutely.
But
It
the rewrite makes that it's surprisingly quick. But also like I do have a pretty good memory.
Okay, that's good. I Mine is should be a lot better for a lawyer. But
Mhm.
yeah, no, I would definitely, well, I don't know. I mean, it would be interesting to try to, write something and then attempt to rewrite it from memory and, think of what stands out. And, I'm thinking of Nutcracker now, and, what are the points of, the initial, chapters, the subsequently what actually stands. I, yeah, it would be a very interesting exercise.
I really
If
recommend it.
if I did that instead of writing Nutcracker 2, my fans might actually, finally revolt. But that's one day I'll try that.
You're working on Nutcracker too?
I am, yeah. I actually read one of the chapters both at the New Ritual Press Spring Equinox party in LA back in March. The same chapter, a little reworked, at the Summer Solstice party in June, and on Victim Radio with Emily Sipiora. So after all of the events where I have read this chapter, I am finally, hopefully this week. I've just been, work has had me buried,
Mhm.
but
Are
I'm
you
gonna
New York or LA based?
New York.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, New Ritual, Matt and Evan, my partners in New Ritual, they're in LA. I'm in New York. So we have this kind of bi-coastal thing going
Mhm.
on. And it's actually very helpful because it's fun to kind of like, well, now we're doing a party in LA. Now we're doing a party in New York. And also the different quote unquote scenes in the different cities offer kind of like different vibes, different.
Yeah.
I like this dynamic, but yeah, I'm going to release it on Substack hopefully this week. I have the cover art by not the cover art, the chapter art by Cairo Smith, friend of the pod. He's also one of our upcoming authors. A
Mhm.
novel by Cairo, Scene Bucks, is coming out. Everyone should buy it.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, release it this week and release the various chapters of Nutcracker 2 serially on my Substack, which will hopefully both build my subscriber base and ultimately the actual physical novel that we print at the end. I don't think many people will be like, oh well, I already read that on Substack, so I don't want a physical copy. I think it won't really cannibalize sales very much at all. So I think it's a good idea. If I were going with a traditional publisher, they probably wouldn't allow that. But since I'm publishing it through New Ritual, my publishing
Mhm.
company, I'm gonna let myself do it.
I do think that like the people who want a physical book will get a physical book.
Yeah.
People, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And I
It's
mean, to the
it's like a
extent
work
you're,
of art in and of itself.
yeah. And to the extent your work is out there, like it's more important that it's widely read anyways. So if it's getting shared around like Substack or whatever, and that
Yeah.
means more people read it, great. That's wonderful. I want more people to read. I want, and I think that's the way authors need to start thinking. They need to start thinking, well, how, can I break through the noise, break through the algorithm, and get my work into people's heads. And that's just not something that writers are often very well equipped to do. But it's going to be, I think, increasingly important with the rise of AI and slopification. Um, you know, Writers are going to have to think about, you know, how do we make it past the make it over the wall?
Yeah, there are a couple walls to publishing. So I've noticed that a lot of brick and mortar bookstores are very fastidious about the content of the books that they put out.
Yeah, that they
Even if
sell.
they don't read, yeah, even if they don't read it themselves, they care a lot about vibes. It's
Yeah,
all vibes based. You know what I
yeah,
mean? They want like immigrant diaspora tears first and
yeah,
foremost. That's really, isn't it interesting how evergreen that is? Because I remember being a little girl and reading a couple of those books and liking them, and then all of a sudden they got really like tiresome. But that's
yeah,
always been a big trend in literature, literary fiction. It's always considered very noble. And I'm sorry I can't be that girl.
yeah. It I mean one of the topics we, just, had on the pre-show list is your experience as a Russian immigrant to the United States. And what, jumped out to me because I listened to your pod on Book Club from Hell and listened to your experience. And I don't know to what extent you touched on it in that pod, but it seems to me Russians are in this very weird place where you are immigrants, many of you, and generally, like, immigrants are like given this kind of like, well, tell us your story, blah blah blah. But ever since 2016 with the Russiagate stuff, and then obviously with the Ukraine war stuff in 2022. Russians and Russia have become for the elite media, a sort of like South Africans, like, oh, we don't like these people, they're the bad people. And it's like it's worse than being a normal white guy, which is
Yeah,
really funny.
absolutely. It's you're not even spicy white. You're just a Slav. And I think it's it is this really interesting space. Like there's no one else like it where there's such a fetish, there's such an appetite for Slavic just that I've noticed like just a Slavic name, you know, will kind of like alter someone's perspective a little bit, which is interesting, like that it makes such a difference. But there is like an appetite for it. At the same time, I don't feel like discriminated against or anything. I don't really have any like negative consequences from it in the writing world. In real life, all the time, but I don't really care to complain about that. Just, you know,
Mm,
sanctions and things like that. It's like impossible to send my grandma money, etc.
mm.
Things like that. But no, I don't think it in writing, I think it only helps. It does not hurt.
Interesting. So, I mean, you would think that the editors of, you know, Harper's or the New Yorker would favor a story of a, Russian immigrant, girl who, which is not explicitly like anti-Putin or something, that would,
Actually, that echelon, no.
yeah,
Like,
I mean, that's what I mean.
oh, sorry, at that level, oh, absolutely, they care.
Yeah.
They absolutely care.
Like there are
I
some
do think, like,
stories like, yeah, like being, Palestinian or being, an Asian immigrant or like basically anyone who is an immigrant who is of, a person of color. And I mean, I think, non people of color, it's like, well, you're kind of, you're an immigrant, it's something, whatever. But then like Russians, it's like, oh no, you're worse. You're worse than
well, this is
our
the thing.
natives.
Well, the thing is, you will be gate kept. Like, if you're Russian, you will be gate kept by institutions and like magazines and things like that. However, organically, your reach will be better than a non-Russian person. I
Why do
really
you think
believe.
that is?
I think we have a je ne sais quoi when it comes to writing and literature and self-hatred. I think a lot of writing that people enjoy is comes from like
Sure,
hyper
yeah,
self-awareness, and I think there's something about the Slavic constitution. I think a lot of us have like mild cases of OCD,
sure.
and we the Russian language itself and Russian culture. So children start speaking and reading from a very young age.
Hmm.
Like it's taboo if your kid like you go to like a Russian school, even here, and you can tell the parents that are pretty fresh off the boat because their children speak in full paragraphs and full sentences. They don't do baby talk. They
Interesting.
they pronounce their consonants. There are no lisps. You know, everyone's like hyperverbal.
Hmm.
Russians are extremely hyperverbal, and our language has so much richness. Like we have the most complicated grammar system.
Hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of us skew to writing. I mean, if you look around, there are tons of Russian journalists and writers.
Yeah,
And also, Russians in their day to day life tend to write more than the average person, whether it's like diary entries or letters or poetry or little songs or ditties. I think like Russians tend to like we have incurable graphomania.
yeah. Oh, yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah.
It yeah, I mean certainly Russia and Russians have this very rich heritage of some of the greatest, novelists of all time and playwrights and that of course does trickle down into modern day I assume by osmosis and by cultural diffusion and such things. What who are some Russian authors that I should be reading that maybe are not being presented to me, but who there are English translations of because I cannot speak Cyrillic.
So you in particular and everyone needs to read The Pit by Alexander Kuprin. Kuprin. The Pit, I've definitely talked about this book before because it's such a good novel.
Okay.
It has such a good structure. and I've read it over and over again. I read it recently. I'm like I had to reread it to flesh out a part of my novel that is inspired by it. But The Pit is about a brothel, or it's about a port city with two brothels, one rich one poor one. And it's a pretty funny, um, rambling novel at first, describing like, just like the women and their customers and just like the dynamics of the port city. And then it becomes a little sad and tragic. And I think that's such a great book that a lot of people don't know about. And I think it was because it was very censored. The Russian government will censor books for propriety,
Sure.
vulgarity, things like that. Like the Orthodox culture still prevails. Um, but I really recommend that book. Recently, I read a Chekhov story I'd never read before. It was called Chameleon, and
Okay,
it
I
was
haven't heard of that one.
fantastic. It's very short, and it's so I'm not a big fan of the talky Chekhov work. I really like the Chekhov pieces where a bunch of peasants are up to no good.
Sure. Yeah.
That's what I enjoy.
No, no, absolutely.
Rowdy
Um,
peasants that need a scapegoat.
I'm wondering, any like contemporary, like last 15, 20 years, because I mean, like, so there are so few, and I mean, part of this is, you know, in I mean, in America, the whole thing we've been talking about is the censorious nature of the mainstream publishing industry. And as a result, a lot of the, novels, the literary fiction that has come out in the past 15, 20 years has not been great, except by people who were kind of grandfathered in. So, Welbeck, his, work, in my opinion, continues to be good. There's I think you would like this writer actually. He is David Zalé. He wrote a collection of short stories around 2016 called All That Man Is. It's this series of interlocking short stories with each one at a different point of a man's life, starting with a teenage boy and ending with an old dying man, and in between, just every chapter is a progression of the protagonists, a different protagonist in each chapter, but at a advanced age, a progressing age,
That does sound good.
and it's really good, and he is one of the rare exceptions. I don't know how maybe it's because he's Hungarian and English, and she's just kind of like, well, is exotic enough that he flew under the radar, but like his stuff is relatively politically incorrect, honest, authentic. Like it's the type of stuff where if I tried to get it published by, the mainstream industry in 2020, I would have received the same, rejection letters that I, received from agents then. And but he made it through, and he has another novel out now called a novel. His previous one was a collection of short stories. It's called Flesh. My dad recently read it. I have it from him. I'm uh, behind on my reading, so I have not been able to get into this one yet. But I'm told it's very good. And yeah, every so often when there's a an author that is writing fiction that is like not defanged in and I would think that Russian fiction to the extent is translated and available in the US would by its very nature not suffer from the same you know attempts to appease woke censors. So I would be very interested in who the current writers are in Russia and the current like celebrated literary fiction writers. Not to put you on the spot.
Well,
I'm
so
just thinking
actually,
about that myself.
this is very relevant. Deep Vellum Press just mailed me two books by Vladimir Sorokin, who's kind of like a little bit of like a kind of like a paranoid sci-fi writer, very
Oh
opulent,
yeah, I've heard of
very
Sorokin.
funny, very Strugatsky. And they just sent me a gorgeous. I posted this recently, but I cannot emphasize how beautiful this paperback is. I'm really partial to paperbacks. And every short story has an incredible painting next to it, full color, and I cannot wait to get into these short stories, like because like the weird creepy paintings next to them, give you a little hint about what it's about,
Yeah,
which really inspires me for the future.
yeah,
Because remember
no,
how I said, like, once you finish your book, you can start thinking that way. And just like the actual craft of this book is so impressive. And so Sorokin wrote Blue Lard, which
yeah,
is like a sci-fi novel about famous writers being cloned and
okay,
being forced to write, and like they collect their sweat. Lard in like Russian, like Голубое Sala is the title. So the idea is that like you can catch what these writers are making by catching their sweat, and then you get these like insane like replicas of the famous writers. And it's a really inventive novel. I enjoyed it. It's a also a gorgeous NYRB book,
okay.
but that's I just got it and I cannot wait to start the short stories.
Yeah, no, I'm looking at the cover right now. It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
Um,
I Speaking of NYRB, I will mention it on this podcast that I think sometime in late September, I might host a Maravagine book club on Spaces because that's a novel that I had never heard of in my life before. I walk into a
sure.
bookstore where my friend works. I'm buzzing off the Klaus Kinski biography, and I'm like, I need a hit of something that can like fill the void of finishing that biography because that post good book depression.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So he immediately hands me Maravagine, which is really strange comparison because they're written like 80 years apart or 90 years apart, really. And Maravagine is fiction, not autobiography. But it was absolutely perfect because it's like this rambling, weird, super opulent journey. Like there's a lot of like sex and murder and starting revolutions, like setting fires and leaving. Like they try to find El Dorado and like burn a village down. It
Amazing.
reminds me a lot of Fitzcarraldo.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I was about to say it seems very Kinski build.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no, I would love to hear more about that and, attend the space.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I'm keep us posted about
Thank
that.
you.
Um, the if this is not too hard of a segue, I did want to, because I mean we were talking about spaces and talk a little bit about the quote unquote scene and the attempt to kind of categorize what it is we're doing here. And we've already kind of discussed that a bit, but I'm curious, where would you put your writing if we have the mainstream publishing industry, the authors who are being published by Penguin, etc., with their diaspora stories and such, and as a sort of in some ways reaction to that, but not entirely a reaction. I think also just a an organic collection of people who are outside of that system getting together to kind of like start writing books. It's been, at times called the New Wave, or as we said, androgenic literature. And I'm curious, what would you say is what you feel the milieu in which you're writing, and also where do you see the publishing industry and the vibe going? Because I do see a version of the future where the mainstream publishing industry embraces our writing. So I'm curious what you think.
I think that soon publishing will have to respond to the organic reach and enthusiasm that like some books have really achieved. Um, for superstitious reasons, I can't even begin to answer the question of where do you fit into a scene. I
Sure.
will say that, and I'm so grateful for this, I'm continually surprised how far and how random my reach is. For example, I was sitting in a coffee shop last winter before Christmas, knitting my friend some gloves, like for a man sized hand. And I asked the man next to me, can you please try this on to see if it fits? And he tried it on, it fit perfectly. We start talking, chatting. He asked me what book I was reading. I think it was Dennis Johnson. And he was like talking about his favorite book of the year was Incurable Graphomania.
Oh wow, that's
It is
amazing.
such a weird moment. I honestly
Yeah,
felt gang stalked and he felt gang stalked. And there was like a strange moment. Like, that's like really weird. And
that's
that
crazy.
happened. I like on YouTube, I found like really weird small videos of like people reading my book. I have no idea how they found me. Um, my book is, I guess it's in a few brick and mortar stores, and so people read it.
That's good.
But I will say, like, I think I'm all over the place, and I kind of like it that way. I don't
Yeah.
really think I have like a spot in any scene.
Yeah, no, that's, probably for the best. And these, attempts at taxonomy, though kind of important, I think, in like building the mythos of anything to, kind of like you call it something so people start thinking about it. But you yourself as an artist, yeah, I hesitate myself to say, and as I was, just saying, I think the mainstream will embrace our writing because any type of scene is inherently is somewhat constrictive,
And
and
they like mainstream publishing, they struggle to make sales. I mean, I
oh,
think that's
absolutely,
a secret. So they should catch on, but I do think that there are a lot of gatekeepers and parameters that are ideological or political, and that is not going to change anytime soon. It has nothing to do with who's president or who's in power, because those
sure,
are
absolutely,
self-feeding. They're like those little terrariums that you seal shut and it feeds itself.
yeah,
Like those communities, like the currency between the women who tend to work there is not overstepping any social taboo, not making anyone uncomfortable. Um,
yeah. No, I mean,
that's
much
People complain
agreed.
about it and it sounds so reductive. It sounds like an excuse for failure, but unfortunately there is a little bit of truth to it. And it is an excuse for failure though. I think you can transcend if you work really hard. I think all of these parameters can be transcended if you create something that's like really good and you have a good team of people. Like you have
Absolutely,
good art, you have, a good quality product, a good editor. I think you can transcend, but it is pretty hard. There is like a little bit of a ceiling.
absolutely. I hope we have you for a little bit longer, but let me know if you need to run in
Hey,
the
hey,
near
sure,
future.
it's Saturday.
I thought it would be fun to dig into. I realized we didn't go in the numerical order that I had originally set forth,
That's fine.
but
Organic is better, you know.
yeah,
Yeah.
the outsider motif of some of your stories, I thought that would be a kind of interesting topic to dig into. And many of these short stories, from Ivan's Nightmare to the Heart of a Dog with Wyatt, to, as we were discussing, first person shooter. Um, these are all characters who are, whether they are actual outsiders like Wyatt, or whether they are like insiders who are suffering from a great alienation, like the like John from Ivan's Nightmare. We have characters who are seeing the world through a lens that gives them a certain distance, which is good for art, good for it's a good lens. And so I was wondering, to what extent is your centering these characters as your protagonist, is that a narrative device? Is it just something that feels comfortable? Because certainly I would co-sign on the idea that authors and artists are, often themselves outsiders, and for me, that is a natural perspective to write from, because, yeah, I've, rarely felt otherwise.
I think it's hard to watch and participate at the same time. And I think not participating in your own life is a bad decision that has a lot of domino effects of other negative things.
Yeah,
One of the positive effects is that it'll make you a very good writer. Like checking out makes you a good writer. But I think I'm not saying that the characters I write about are writers, but I am saying that they are people. They tend to be people who have made some kind of string of decisions that is sending them down a path. And I don't really necessarily think of it as an insider outsider thing. Um, those I guess those parameters don't really make sense to me
mm,
because uh, nobody is like fully secure. Everyone thinks of themselves as kind of like I don't know. I think everyone has a little bit of anxiety in that way.
sure, yeah.
But these people are rejected by others, and they usually deserve it. But I think that the solitude makes them more interesting people.
Yeah. And I mean, that perspective allows you as the writer to analyze the scene in a way that would not be as easy if they were just kind of less analytical figures themselves.
Yeah. Also, I just like giving a character some kind of strange non sequitur dialogue or decision because that's life. You know, we do spontaneous things.
Sure,
I
yeah.
really enjoy, like in terms of outsiders that are characters that you can draw a hard line and say this is an outsider prison. Like people who are incarcerated or people who have been incarcerated. Um, Reading a lot about the prison system in our country and all the different laws that are honestly horrible. Like I'm not an abolished prison person at all.
Mm,
Those people, most of them should be in there. The vast
yeah,
majority should be in an institution and not walking like in society. But it's like horrible. I mean, it's the way that in 28 states, I think, you're in debt after they release you. Like you either work it off while you're there, but they pay
yeah,
you like 2 cents an hour, so you probably can't. but like, there's like 28 pay to stay states in the US. So I got like really interested in reading about prisons, and I enjoy writing from that perspective. Uh,
Interesting.
so in terms of outsiders, I think like most of the outsiders, quote unquote, that I write about aren't really on the nose, but that one might be.
Yeah, no, I mean that clearly is a very obvious outsider. You're removed from society, but even then, there's a Amelia within the prison, and there's probably a question of are you an outsider or an insider in the prison, which itself is probably a very important question.
It's
I would.
interesting. Have you seen Into the Abyss, that Werner Herzog documentary about people on death row?
No, but I'm getting so many good recommendations. I'm writing all these down. I'm
Oh,
gonna
nice.
watch this stuff.
I People love Werner Herzog's documentaries, and I particularly like this one. So he goes to the South, I believe it's Texas, and he visits with some prisoners, some American, like just normal guys, like young. A lot of them are surprisingly young. I remember that really shook me. And they talk about their crimes, and they use such a matter of fact tone.
Hmm.
And some of them are extremely, they seem very detached from like the person who committed those crimes.
Yeah.
And I think like writing about dissociation, I don't know, like I'm really into the phenomena noumena, like Immanuel Kant,
Sure.
um, the philosophy of the doing and the being, or like the doing and the perceiving.
Yeah. No, I'm
And I think like the prison
familiar.
is an example of a really like poetic example of a place where everything is so real that the only thing these prisoners have is a fantasy world.
That makes sense.
Yeah, a lot of prison literature like deals with that.
Yeah. I mean, having to kind of like create stories to keep yourself entertained, to keep yourself from like going crazy. The I mean, there's probably some cases where it's necessary to be in solitary confinement for the safety of others, for the safety of yourself. But that does obviously seem maddening, and I'm sure it does drive people mad. But in that instance, I would think, I imagine it's not often the case that they are able to get their hands on books and such if it's a punishment or something like that rather than protective custody.
No,
um,
nowadays a lot of prisons, I mean, honestly, you don't even have to look at prisons to know this is happening. Like a lot of public libraries, they get renovated, and all of a sudden it's just another rec center with like, computer rooms or like empty conference rooms that people rent out. They're not
yeah.
bringing books at all. And so, prisons are like this as well. Like they honestly like literacy is going down
Oh
in
yes.
every part of society.
It's shocking to me how people who are, college graduates, very, literate, and I especially see this among Gen Z. Um, I'll ask, what did you do tonight? And, the person will say, I was just on my phone. And it's like I couldn't, commit to a movie or TV. And it's like it's just the TV. You couldn't commit to watching a TV episode? That's crazy. That's like, and I mean, I see, okay, I've partly because I read all day as a lawyer, but it's not that type of reading. It can be hard in the evening to sit down and read, but I try to. But that's like my thing where I'm like, yeah, I feel like I'm losing my attention span. I can't read books as well as I used to. But when I speak to Gen Z, they're like, I'm losing my attention span. I can't watch television as well as I used to. And it's just like, what's going on? This is a race to the bottom.
Okay, I have started watching and listening. I listen to podcasts sped up. Art Bell, I listen to him normal speed. But I don't think that's a product. I don't think that's a me problem. I think that's like podcasts nowadays are too slow. I don't know. But I also sometimes watch YouTube videos fast. I'm like, wait, no, 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 you can't be doing this.
Yeah.
This is like black tar heroin for your brain's ability to process information.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, from the app that I spend the most time on is obviously Twitter. And yeah, I mean, I will spend a lot of time on that. But I mean, in my defense, it's usually replying to people and like writing stuff. And when I'm done with that, I mean, I guess I just spend so much time doing that that's like more than enough social media for the day. I'll like look at Instagram a little bit. I'll, look at what other people are writing a little bit on Twitter and such. But in general, yeah, I mean, now that I'm single again, I check the dating apps, but other than that, I'm not really like I'm not like watching TikToks, and I don't have TikTok.
But you're a
And
loyal juicer on Twitter. I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Oh yeah. No, like I mean like why I think like why not? Like if I have people
The
who are
Baltic
like in
Stanley fluid.
my yeah, who are in my scene, in my crew or whatever, yeah, I of course I'm gonna juice them. And I want my friends to succeed and to get their voices out there. And also like I just look, I have to, juice other people because if I use all of these other accounts to just constantly promote myself, it'll just become like too, unpalatable to people. So I need to mix it up. I need to put other people in there. So you and others are the beneficiary of that.
Yeah, plus like there's so much like free labor happening around here.
Oh yeah,
Like
absolutely.
and that everybody needs to help each other
Yeah,
because, like everyone's I think like sometimes people who haven't been through the process yet have this illusion that like someone's getting like a salary to do something,
yeah,
and no, it's like, we're all like working really hard and everything to push it. And so I
yeah.
think like the gratitude is really important. I just sent out another batch of like signed books to people.
Oh, that's sweet. That's really nice.
I love it when people order them because I get to like write a handwritten note and it's just more personal. But this time I was in West Virginia and just kind of like relaxing on the porch, listening to the creek, writing down dumbass limericks, bouncing them off my friends who were really drunk and just like liked everything that I was writing. So some of them are really goofy and vulgar and ribald. And then I did little watercolors with them. So I just wanted to like, do something like a little bit more personal than just like a thank you note. You know what I mean?
I mean, that's wonderful. Yeah.
So yeah, I think like all of it, um, going the extra mile and just like being supportive and grateful. I don't know.
Yeah,
Let's take it
whenever
in.
anyone DMs me to, sometimes people will just DM me, can you send me a copy of the book? And, an ebook, certainly. Sometimes, depending on the person, I'll be like, yeah, all right, I'll send you a physical copy that it's free. But it's something that like in general, like if you ask me for an ebook, I will send it because I want people to read it. And, that is, yeah, I support, I
I
love
get
having
nervous.
fans.
I get a little nervous sending out a PDF
Really?
or an ebook. Yeah. I do worry a little bit about like, I don't know, not so much plagiarism or something like that, but I have this weird gut feeling that it's best to like gatekeep that. Like, you can buy a Kindle or whatever and screenshot to your heart's content. But
Yeah.
there's a little bit of like a
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah.
hiccup there. But
That's
that's my intuition, and but that also comes from, like, I do have, like, a very persistent rejection gut feeling against technology,
yeah. No,
sometimes irrational.
that is a good point. I should actually stop, maybe sending ebooks as
Oh, no, I'm
freely
not trying to talk you
as
out of it, but
I mean, it's something I'm gonna speak to. So I'm not like the tech guy at New Ritual. Matt and Evan are much more into like what is kind of like you know easy to jailbreak or whatever. Like,
I'm
how
afraid of
is
AI, feeding it to AI as well. I'm afraid that, like, someone with good intentions
yeah,
I'm not trying to say that they would, like, whatever, but would feed my book into AI, and that would do something. I don't know.
yeah. Well,
These are
the
all very paranoid, maybe they're narcissistic thoughts, but I don't know how any of this works, so I'm
yeah.
cautious.
The interesting thing about that, and I've thought about that a lot, this is obviously a big conversation, but so it's kind of, I'm only touching on it superficially, but the idea that AI will replace the literary fiction author, I've always been very, very skeptical of because the reason, in my opinion, why people read literary fiction is, sad to say, not because of the quality of the fiction. Obviously, if it's bad, you don't want to read more of it, but it's, more you identify quality writers and then you want to see what they have to say, in their next novel, in their next. And there's something about, let's say someone feeds Nutcracker into an AI and the Nut AI produces a different sequel. And I mean, well, so like I didn't write that, and I would publicly say this isn't AI, this isn't mine. And maybe people would read it, maybe they wouldn't, but I almost guarantee you more people would read the actual sequel. And I think the reason why people read literary fiction is they have a parasocial relationship with the authors. And far from being, something that is going away, I think that is becoming more and more true as authors are becoming more and more accessible via Twitter, the internet, what have you. And but even back in the day, the reason why people read the latest Philip Roth novel was because he's Philip Roth. And they want to see what he's writing and what he's
Yeah.
thinking. And so yeah, I don't think to the extent we're in business, which is, a laughable concept, I don't think we're going out of the literary fiction business. I do, however, think that fantasy, genre fiction, they could really be in trouble because,
Yes.
yeah,
Romance. Yeah.
yeah, I don't think the author is that important there. But the parasocial relationship with the author is really what you're selling in literary fiction. And I know some editors who take the position that, like, that's all you're selling. It doesn't even
Yeah.
matter. It could be a book that, you write, all work and no play makes Dan a dull boy all over and over, and it'll sell the same. And I don't think that's true. I don't, I
This
think that's very
started,
reductive, but
I think this began in the era of Eve Babbitt's and Cookie Mueller,
okay.
two women who wrote about, like, rubbing elbows with famous people and having sex with them, just like short story collections. I see you're writing them down. I don't actually recommend these
Oh, all right.
collections.
Well,
No, I'm just saying, like,
I'm
this
learning.
all started with them,
Yeah.
um, where they were very, like, sensual, attractive women who were star fuckers. And the collections aren't good. They're not that interesting. They're very repetitive. But yes, you're selling, like, a parasocial relationship with that author.
Yeah.
Um, I think a lot of, like, don't know. I think you could even like pin this to a lot of famous writers, like even Hunter S. Thompson a little bit.
Hmm.
Although his work is great. His work is great. But I do think that there's a big surge to like live vicariously through these men and women
Yeah,
in literary
absolutely.
fiction.
Yeah, I mean, especially as we begin to literally establish relationships with readers. Like there are people who were like, "Oh yeah, Hunter S. Thompson, he's my type of guy." But then like literally,
He's so me.
yeah, he's literally me.
And you work
Uh,
for H&R Block, like yeah.
yeah, but now I have the nut army, and I have my little homies who
Your little like your racists or your Bayhive or your what are the rest of them called? There needs to be more of them, like for like terrible people. Like Mel Gibson needs one. I mean, he already has one. Like every woman in the world loves Mel Gibson. We forgive him for everything.
Yeah. I mean, he's a good-looking guy, but also he's like, has his own opinions, obviously.
I
And
loved
he's
this Joe Rogan episode. It was so good.
is Joe Rogan. I haven't listened to that. I should. I mean, so Rogan to me is like he's not a great interviewer because he's just kind of like, just like, oh, what's this about? What's that about? And but I mean that, with interesting people that can produce really interesting conversations. And yeah, so like I
Rogan's,
don't
yeah,
oh go
I
on,
think
sorry.
he's at his best when he's talking to someone who is equally famous as him. When he's talking to a guest that's like an expert or something, it's always like really informative and stuff. But, when he's talking to like the Mel Gibson episode, like they're so comfortable with each other.
Yeah,
And I think a lot of like these extremely famous people, they're just like so comfortable with each other because they both are like in this strange position in the world.
yeah.
And it's very like natural.
The
I don't
the
listen to him that often, but whenever there's a guest that I like, Spotify will feed it to me and I'm like, you know what? Fuck it. Yeah. Let's do this.
whenever there's a big guest, I'll listen. So like
Hmm.
the Trump one, that was just
It
a
was good.
masterful. It I mean, especially like the timing before the election, that like really, I mean, many people I think, felt, I think it dispelled the idea that Trump is dumb. And, a lot of people, it just was kind of like, banged into their head by the media that he's a buffoon, he's this, he's that. But then you listen to him speak with Rogan for, about 2 hours. Not dumb, he's not like Elon Musk, but he's not like I don't know Noam Chomsky, but he's pretty well spoken, thinking on his feet, etc. And I think that was a very eye-opening moment for a lot of people. And I think that is what Rogan does very well. You have these kind of like famous people who are, maybe not that well known for their thinking or their thinking patterns. And, he can tease out really interesting long form conversations with them just because it's not how they're used to speaking. So, like,
Yeah.
frankly, the if Kamala had went on, I think that could have been really interesting, but she wouldn't do it.
I think she would have been so funny. Like
Yeah.
they would have asked her about Montel.
Oh
Like
yeah.
I think she would have been extremely funny. Like they would have smoked weed together. That would have
Yeah.
won her the election, I
Yeah,
think.
probably, yeah. She was most I think I even posted about this. Like Kamala like embracing being a thought is like that's the most winning image of her
I
being like
totally agree. Like the party girl, like,
yeah.
just like put her on the Tyra show. Like get Tyra Banks out of retirement, whatever she's doing. You know, give Wendy Williams like shot of adrenaline, get her up, like, we need
Yeah.
this, we need this.
I mean, that's
But
why when they were doing Brat Summer, I was like, she could actually win. She's being, a hoe, and that's like, people like that.
oh, I never
And
thought she was gonna win. I never thought she was gonna win.
really,
Never, not even for a moment, but it was good entertainment.
yeah,
My opinion of Trump is a little skewed because, like, I guess I grew up with like a little bit different media. Um, I just didn't, I guess I like read a lot. I wasn't really aware of who Donald Trump was until 2016.
okay,
Every single president that's ever existed has come out of nowhere for me. Like,
okay,
I've never heard of this guy in my life, type of deal, except for Biden, of course, because he was VP. But so I think a lot of people have this baggage of like his sort of like vulgar um Mr. Wall Street, Mr. Avarice persona that was really big in like the 80s and 90s. Rappers love him, stuff like that. Like, I was vaguely aware of that.
yeah,
But I didn't really know what he did. And so I think like this like really rabid desire to assign some kind of like vulgar hedonistic persona to him expired when the Joe Rogan episode came out because he sounded very old. Like, compared to Joe Rogan, who's like very like kind of like Gen X in that like uncouth way.
yeah,
He likes to do drugs with his guests. He'll just say whatever. Trump isn't like that. He's kind of old. And remember when he was talking about like the melancholia?
oh yeah, yeah. That's
Like, he was just like kind of like a Norman Rockwell character put in a studio in Austin, like a fish out of water, but delivering kind of like a vulnerable
yeah,
conversation.
yeah. No,
Yeah, there was a little
absolutely.
bit of a vibe shift, yeah.
And that was I should know this, but that was post being shot, right?
I think so. I didn't
Yeah,
listen to the entire episode, to be honest, because I got bored.
fair enough.
I go pretty below threshold with podcasts. Like, I'll I'll put something on for half an hour and then put on Art Bell. Art
Interesting.
Bell is so evergreen for me. I mean, like, no matter what mood I'm in, every episode there's so many different callers saying crazy things, and like every time you listen to the same episodes, they change a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, I have like two or three pods that I listen to regardless, just because I like the banter of the guys who do it. So like one is Good Old Boys with Marek and Bach Beef, and they do kind of like politics and but from a kind of like southern perspective.
I think Rugby blocked me. I don't know who he is.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. He's not usually I don't know.
He
I
was
could
like
get
one of
him
the first
blocked,
people I
yeah.
ever saw that blocked me.
Um, but yeah. So I listen to them.
For shout
I
outs.
listen to the Two Keys Bros, the
Yeah,
sidebar episodes.
I know
Really
them.
like that. And other than that, if someone has an interesting guest on, I'll listen. Or I listen to pods that are like informative. So I'm going through the like Martyr Made, all his history stuff. Regardless of what his Twitter opinions are and
My
other.
ideal podcast has like no editing. It's just some old guy delivering information. Like,
Yeah.
there's a really great one about the Sourland Mountains in New Jersey,
Okay.
where a lot of ex-convicts and slaves hid from society because like there's no way to get up there. I
Interesting.
Yeah, I love like history podcasts and stuff like that. Like, I kind of have like a low attention span for like banter, or like people always think they're more charming than they are, and I'm kind of like, okay. Uh,
Yeah. No, that's hopefully not the case when you listen to Matt and me. But
no, I actually, what I like about your podcast is you really closely read.
oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been impressed in the past. That's something I do judge podcasts based off of is like when oh my gosh, what is Yerk's podcast called? Uh Bistro California. I was so I went on that podcast with Jacob Everett, who is
Sure, yeah.
editor-in-chief of Apocalypse Confidential, and I had a great conversation with them. We talked about Watermelon Sugar, and we talked about some prog rock, and I was like really impressed with how closely he read the book.
Hmm.
And so I do enjoy the conversation when you can tell that like people came prepared.
Yeah, no, I mean that's very important. And, it's, something that you, I think, like owe the author. Like when people have me on and they have not read Nutcracker, it's like, well, I appreciate being on and I want to, promote my novel, but like, yeah, you really couldn't read it. It's
I For me it's not so much like being offended that they didn't read it, but it's more so for me like I guess I'm like, well, why am I on? Like, I'm not that interesting. I guess like so I guess I'm surprised like what the
yeah.
motivation is, but I don't know.
I mean, for
People like
me,
to talk.
it's more like
I
having
like
to
to talk, yeah.
retell, like you like start everyone from scratch about like what the novel is and stuff. Like it's like, oh, okay, so I'm gonna have to do the whole story here instead of having someone who like has actually read it and is ready to kind of like have a dialogue about it. So it's like it's fine. I am like ready to at any point drop and give a Nutcracker seminar, but like it's always more enjoyable when it's a dialogue, as we've had here.
Okay,
Not
speaking of podcasts,
Yeah,
Ball Earth Propaganda, RIP. That was my favorite podcast.
a Ballers Propaganda. I don't know that
Ball
one.
Earth Propaganda. It's gone. You can't listen to it. It doesn't exist anymore.
Let's say who was the host there.
It was Billy and Flipper and oh my God, there was a third person who I'm so sad I don't remember. But it was I can't explain it. It was like just three kind of paranoid dudes. The first episode was legendary because they talked about like Billy talked about his experience in jail,
Okay,
and it was just a funny episode. But for me, like podcasts, it's like the best ones are like lightning in a bottle.
yeah,
The strain, I don't know, just there can't be too much editing or like gussing up of it.
yeah. No, I mean
Kind of like a
absolutely.
good
You want to
conversation.
hear the ums. You want to listen to something that sounds like a natural conversation, and that is just like one of the like. I love Matt, my co-host, but he sometimes the way he speaks, he's just so precise and speaking in like whole paragraphs without like the ums or the whatever. And I feel like that can be sometimes difficult for a listener where it's like
I
you're
envy him. I want to delete all the ums and likes, especially the likes. Oh,
I'm okay with it. Like I like I don't know. I feel like it's being able to speak off the cuff is, a talent or skill, and like the most important part of it is just being able to be authentic. And if you're speaking in complete sentences authentically, and that's just how you think, that's great. And but yeah, the most I'm just happy that and this was like a difficult point when we I started podcasting. There it was an element of anxiety, social anxiety about, like I'm talking, I what am I saying? Am I, being, intelligent? And that is kind of like the death of radio, of podcasting. You have to just be able to, get it out there and sound normal. And yeah. So, but I don't mean to criticize Matt too harshly. He does sound normal, and it is, it does, work. But I myself would not or and do not speak in complete paragraphs.
I don't know. I think I think there's so much, like, I really love listening to William F. Buckley.
Sure.
Even when he's mid-thought or rambling or doesn't know what he's about to say, it sounds so beautiful the way he does it. I
Yeah.
kind of miss that, like, the radio training and, like, all that ritual kind of, like, bounced off of the guests that were, like, a lot more naturalistic.
Similar to Hitchens.
Mhm.
Hitchens had, a very practiced but natural but polished syntax.
Yeah.
On that note, maybe since it's getting on in the day,
Mhm.
and I have to do a little law work, maybe I'll let you go. But is there anything that you want to touch on that we haven't yet?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for having me, and I'll plug, again, the book
Absolutely.
Incurable Graphomania. It's out with Apocalypse Confidential. And just thank you so much for reading and inviting me on.
Oh no, it's been wonderful, and thank you, as I said by DM. Thank you for writing it because I cannot stress enough to our audience. This is a collection of short stories that is not just really well written, but compelling. The stories and the prose combine to produce something that is real art and that is, we are supporters and champions of everyone in our scene, but it is not the case that every book or collection is really tremendously uh, well written and of high quality. And Incurable Graphomania is, and it should absolutely be read by all of you. So
Thank you.
thank you for
So
coming
flattering.
on, Anna. Uh, yeah, it
das ist
it
dir
was great.
Thank you.